Jaime Lannister enters a Game of Thrones twice. The first entrance belongs to the man people believe he is. He walks into the feast at Winterfell with golden hair, a white cloak, and the confidence of someone who has spent his entire life being watched. Jon Snow looks at King Robert and sees a drunken disappointment. He looks at Jaime and thinks this is what a king should look like. Before Jaime says anything important, George R.R. Martin gives him the appearance of a childhood story made flesh. His second entrance comes a few chapters later. Bran climbs a tower, hears two people discussing dangerous family secrets, and discovers the beautiful knight having sex with his own sister. Jaime catches the boy, pulls him to safety for a moment, looks at Cersei, and says, "The things I do for love." He pushes Bran out of the window. The space between those introductions contains the original design of Jaime Lannister. First comes the legend. Next comes the act that poisons everything we thought the legend meant. Game of Thrones handles the same character differently from its first episode. The television series brings Jaime into the story earlier, lets him speak in private, and begins exposing the person behind the Kingslayer before viewers even understand why they should hate him. Both versions reach Bran's fall. They arrive there carrying different information, and that changes the entire journey that follows. Before we get into that journey, subscribe if you enjoy character essays about the choices that quietly reshape an entire story. Now let's go back to Winterfell and to two versions of the same Golden Knight. Martin's first book is built around limited points of view. We know only what the chapter's chosen character can see, remember, and misunderstand. Jaime receives no chapters of his own in A Game of Thrones. He receives none in A Clash of Kings either. For 2 full books, he exists inside other people's judgments. That matters immediately because the early point of view characters mostly belong to House Stark. Ned remembers entering the throne room at the end of Robert's rebellion and finding Jaime seated on the Iron Throne while King Aerys lay dead. The image disgusts him. A Kingsguard knight had murdered the king he swore to protect, and afterward he sat where the king had ruled. Ned carries that conclusion for 14 years. He has no interest in asking Jaime for his version. The children inherit the atmosphere around that memory. They know the name Kingslayer before they know the young man who earned it. Adults say it with contempt. Jaime's white cloak is supposed to represent sacred service. Yet the nickname follows him like a stain across the fabric. Every appearance arrives prejudged. Jon's view at the feast briefly interrupts that judgment. He is 14, drunk, excluded from the high table, and free to study everyone entering the hall. Robert has the title and none of the visual magic Jon expected. Jaime has no crown, although he seems designed to wear one. He possesses the beauty, posture, and shining armor that songs attach to heroes. People call him the Lion of Lannister to his face and whisper Kingslayer behind his back. Jon finds it difficult to look away. This introduction uses Jaime as a test of appearance. Westeros teaches children to recognize virtue through visual language. Handsome knights in bright armor protect the innocent. Kings carry themselves with authority. White cloaks belong to the finest men in the realm. Jaime satisfies the picture so completely that Jon's imagination promotes him above the actual king. Bran is even more vulnerable to that picture. He dreams of becoming a knight. He remembers Jaime as looking more like the knights in stories than the other men around him. When Bran finds him in the tower, the betrayal reaches beyond physical violence. One of the figures who helped define Bran's dream destroys Bran's body and ends the future he imagined for himself. Martin makes that betrayal brutal through distance. We have admired Jaime's surface and heard the accusations around him. We have never occupied his thoughts. The tower supplies an action with almost no defense attached to it. Jaime sees a child, recognizes the risk, and calculates that the child must die. His famous line gives the act a trace of sadness, though the sadness belongs to Jaime's burden. Bran receives the fall. There is something especially cruel in the moment when Jaime first pulls him upward. Bran slips and hangs from the ledge. Jaime reaches out. For 1 second, the knight appears to fulfill the role Bran assigned to him. He saves the child. Cersei asks what he is doing, and Jaime answers that he is taking the boy with them. It sounds almost playful. Once Bran is secure in Jaime's hands, Jaime throws him. The rescue becomes part of the murder. Martin lets the heroic image return for a final second before Jaime breaks it. The HBO series chooses another first impression. Jaime's earliest proper scene takes place in King's Landing beside the body of Jon Arryn. Cersei watches the funeral preparations from above. Jaime approaches her and says that as her brother, he feels obliged to warn her that she worries too much. She answers that he never worries about anything. Their conversation gives viewers several pieces of Jaime that the novel holds back or distributes elsewhere. He is intimate with Cersei. He can read her mood instantly. He uses humor to calm her. He remembers them at 7 years old when he jumped from the cliffs at Casterly Rock and frightened her. He also repeats Tywin's family lesson: Lannisters do not act like fools. The incest remains hidden in that scene. A first-time viewer can interpret the exchange as two royal siblings worrying about a political secret. Its emotional closeness still registers. Jaime speaks to the Queen without ceremony. He treats her husband as a predictable inconvenience. He knows which childhood memory will reach her. The relationship already has a private language. The scene also places Jaime beside a corpse before it places him beside a sword. Jon Arryn may have discovered something about Cersei's children. Cersei fears he shared it. Jaime calmly reasons that if Robert knew, their heads would already decorate the city gates. Whatever Jon knew died with him, and life will continue. This version of Jaime enters as a man accustomed to living one discovery away from execution. His ease carries a slight performance. Cersei worries enough for both of them, so Jaime takes the role of the fearless twin. He jokes about Robert hunting and visiting whores. He turns danger into something manageable through confidence. Years later, when Jaime admits that only a fool makes threats he is unwilling to carry out, we can trace the attitude back to this first exchange. Fear exists. He refuses to let it decide how he speaks. Television needs this kind of scene because it cannot reproduce Martin's point of view structure directly. A camera can keep Jaime mysterious, although complete dependence on Stark perception would leave Nikolaj Coster-Waldau playing a remote symbol for too long. The series gives him private conversations and lets performance provide information that prose can hide. There is also a difference between reading beauty and seeing an actor. Martin can tell us that Jaime appears closer to a proper king than Robert, and Jon's imagination does the rest. The description is heightened by a boy who has learned knighthood through songs. Golden hair, golden armor, and a white cloak gather into an almost unreal image. Jaime enters the book as an illustration. The series has to put a human face inside that illustration. Coster-Waldau is handsome enough to carry the reputation, though the camera can also catch impatience around the eyes, a private joke arriving before the smile, or the way Jaime's attention changes when Cersei becomes afraid. The face refuses to remain a static emblem. Even silence starts suggesting an opinion. This makes television's mystery less dependent on hidden access and more dependent on uncertain interpretation. We can see Jaime thinking. We cannot always identify the thought. When Cersei worries about Jon Arryn, Jaime's relaxed posture may represent confidence, denial, an attempt to comfort her, or years of practice hiding panic. The actor can play several possibilities together. A later episode does not merely disclose new information. It teaches us how to reread an expression we already saw. The first episode uses that ability carefully. Jaime is rarely the loudest man in a room. Robert announces himself through appetite and volume. Tyrion announces himself through jokes. Cersei maintains royal control through stillness. Jaime shifts according to the person in front of him. With Cersei, he becomes reassuring. With Tyrion, he becomes an amused older brother. Around the Starks, his courtesy carries an edge. The flexibility hints at a man whose identity has always depended on a relationship. Cersei's twin, Tywin's golden son, Tyrion's protector, Aerys's Kingsguard, Robert's Kingslayer. The book can postpone the cost of those roles until Jaime narrates his own chapters. The show begins displaying the adjustments immediately. Its Jaime looks self-contained because he moves with such confidence. Watch him across different company, and the confidence begins to resemble a collection of practiced versions. The private self remains difficult to locate. Coster-Waldau's first episodes build Jaime from tiny contradictions. His smile is arrogant and often genuinely warm. His treatment of Tyrion contains teasing, impatience, and unmistakable affection. Most of the Lannister family sees Tyrion as an embarrassment. Jaime enters a brothel, finds his brother enjoying himself, and talks to him as an equal whose appetites amuse him. Their humor feels practiced. The ease between them tells us that Jaime has a place in his life for someone the rest of the world dismisses. That detail does not excuse Bran. It makes the man who pushes him harder to file away. A clean villain becomes easier to understand with every cruel act. Jaime arrives with a capacity for loyalty, humor, and tenderness, and those qualities serve the same man who can attempt to kill a child. The viewer has to hold both facts at once. The book eventually creates the same pressure through a more aggressive structural trick. Martin waits until A Storm of Swords to give Jaime a point of view chapter. By that stage, readers have spent roughly 2 novels treating him as an enemy. He crippled Bran. He attacked Ned in the streets of King's Landing. His relationship with Cersei helped place Joffrey on a throne he had no legal right to inherit. Robb's capture of Jaime feels like justice, and like the young king's greatest military victory. Once Jaime's first chapter begins, the wall around him opens without warning. His sarcasm acquires an internal rhythm. His pride becomes easier to separate from his reputation. His memories reveal how deeply he once believed in knighthood and how thoroughly his service to Aerys damaged that belief. The reader learns that the simplest story about the Kingslayer left out wildfire hidden beneath King's Landing and a king ordering the deaths of thousands. Martin earns that revelation through delay. He allows us to become comfortable with the public verdict, then makes us live inside the accused man. We experience how a name can replace a person. Jaime has spent years hearing Kingslayer from people who enjoy the city he saved and would rather preserve their moral certainty than ask one additional question. The show cannot suddenly move a camera inside his mind in Season 3. It prepares the ground in Season 1. One of its most important additions places Jaime and Ned together in the throne room. Jaime recalls standing there when Ned's father and brother were killed. Ned asks why he remained outside while Aerys murdered them. Jaime says 500 men simply stood and watched because doing otherwise would have broken their oath. The conversation plants the first serious question around Ned's definition of honor. Ned sees Jaime's oath breaking as the entire moral event. Jaime remembers the oath itself trapping good men beside a monster. He still hides the wildfire and gives Ned no complete defense. Pride stops him from pleading his case to a man who decided the verdict years ago. The audience receives enough to sense an old wound under the mockery. Another show-created conversation brings Robert, Barristan, and Jaime together while they trade war stories. Robert asks Jaime what Aerys said when he was killed. Jaime answers that the king repeated the same phrase he had been saying for hours, "Burn them all." The line sounds sinister long before viewers learn its literal meaning. Jaime offers the truth in a room where nobody thinks to examine it. These scenes begin his later confession, before the bath with Brienne. When he finally explains the wildfire plot in Season 3, the revelation feels newly complete rather than newly invented. The show has already allowed Aerys to haunt him in fragments. Each fragment was available to people who preferred the nickname. His early scene with Jon Snow adds another layer. Jaime finds Jon preparing to join the Night's Watch and asks what could make a man abandon his family for that institution. Jon gives the honorable answer. Jaime smiles and mocks the heroic idea of guarding the realm from dangerous wildlings. He wishes Jon luck serving such an elite force and reminds him that the commitment lasts for life. Jaime sounds like a spoiled knight insulting a sincere boy. He is also speaking from experience. At 15, Jaime joined the Kingsguard with songs and glory in his head. The White Cloak became a lifetime sentence. Aerys used the appointment to rob Tywin of his heir. Jaime discovered that a sacred brotherhood meant guarding a king who burned people alive and abused his queen while honorable men stood outside the door. Jon hears contempt. Later knowledge lets the viewer hear warning. Jaime recognizes the expression of a boy entering an institution because he loves its story. He cannot explain the danger without explaining himself, so the warning emerges as cruelty. That pattern becomes central to the television character. Jaime often tells the truth in a form designed to make everyone reject it. He protects himself with arrogance, receives the disgust he expected, and uses that disgust as proof that explanation would have been pointless. The habit gives him control over rejection. If people hate the mask he deliberately presents, they never get the chance to reject the frightened, idealistic boy still hidden behind it. The confrontation with Ned changes for the same reason. In the novel, Jaime surrounds Ned and orders his men killed after Catelyn arrests Tyrion. Jory dies in the attack. Ned's horse falls on him as Jaime rides away. The event remains ugly, political, and chaotic. The show turns it into a personal duel. Jaime kills Jory himself and crosses swords with Ned. When a Lannister soldier spears Ned through the leg, Jaime knocks his own man down. Winning through interference insults him. He leaves Ned alive and angry. This addition gives Jaime a recognizable warrior code much earlier. It is narrow, vain, and selective. Jory is dead on the street, so Jaime's concern for fairness has obvious limits. Still, the code exists. He wants to test himself against respected fighters. He values courage. He can commit serious crimes while preserving a private boundary that helps him believe he remains a knight. That psychology becomes crucial after he loses his sword hand. Jaime's identity has survived the Kingslayer name because he still possesses one form of excellence nobody can argue away. He may be hated, yet he knows he can defeat almost any man alive. The hand is evidence of value. Its removal leaves him without the physical fact supporting his pride. The book reveals that crisis from inside his thoughts. The show relies on Coster Waldau's body. Jaime slumps, stops eating, and seems to shrink inside dirty armor. The posture from his first appearances disappears. Brienne forces him to live, and their relationship gives him another way to imagine knighthood. Protecting her cannot restore the hand. It can give the white cloak a meaning he once wanted it to have. The difference between the introductions continues to influence how this change feels. Book Jaime begins as a magnificent exterior viewed from far away. His point of view chapters later force readers behind it. His physical mutilation and narrative opening happen in the same broad movement. The golden image is cut apart as the private man finally becomes available. Show Jaime is available in pieces from the beginning. We know he loves Tyrion. We know Cersei can frighten him beneath the jokes. We know Aerys left memories he rarely discusses. We see a personal fighting code. Season 3 gathers those pieces and finally gives them language in the bath at Harrenhal. There is a cost to the television approach. Earlier sympathy can soften the violence of the original construction. Martin makes readers sit with hatred for a long time. Jaime's eventual perspective feels almost confrontational, as though the book has caught us participating in the same shallow judgment practiced by Westeros. The show signals complexity so efficiently that experienced viewers begin waiting for the redemption arc almost immediately. The adaptation also makes Jaime darker in selected places. During captivity, it invents his murder of Alton Lannister, a young cousin who admires him. Jaime draws Alton into a warm conversation about squiring for him, uses the memory to lower his guard, and beats him to death as part of an escape attempt. The plan fails quickly. This scene reminds viewers that charm is one of Jaime's weapons and that affection does not reliably limit his violence. His relationship with Cersei develops differently as well. In the books, Jaime's point of view gradually dismantles the fantasy that they are two halves of one person. He starts recognizing her infidelity, manipulation, and political recklessness. By A Feast for Crows, her request for rescue reaches him in the Riverlands, and he orders the letter burned. The show stretches their bond across the entire series and returns him to Cersei at the end. That choice remains controversial because many viewers understood his story as a steady march away from her. His final return feels easier to understand when placed beside his television introduction. His first private scene defines him through Cersei. He manages her fear, repeats their father's language, and treats their shared survival as the natural center of his life. The series begins with Jaime maintaining the emotional system around his twin, and it ends with him moving back inside it as the walls collapse. I do not think that ending erases every decent act between those moments. Jaime saves Brienne from the bear pit. He arms her and sends her to protect the Stark girls. He knights her on the eve of the battle against the dead. He abandons Cersei's command and rides north because he gave his word. Those choices belong to him. His return reveals the limit of the change the show imagined. Jaime learns to act honorably in situations where honor has a clear human face. Brienne awakens that part of him because she believes in the promises he once wanted to believe in. His shame around Cersei reaches deeper than a broken oath. It sits inside his first model of love, identity, and family. He can leave her. He cannot build a stable understanding of himself beyond her before the end arrives. The books are still moving toward their own answer. Their Jaime has separated further from Cersei, lost faith in the idea that their desires and identities are shared, and begun trying to resolve the Riverlands without creating more unnecessary ruin. He remains compromised. His threats against Edmure show how easily Tywin's methods remain available to him. His past has not vanished because he now understands it better. That is where both introductions deserve attention. Jaime's story was never a simple conversion from evil to good. The first book presents a beautiful knight who performs a monstrous act. The first episode presents a loving brother, secret lover, political conspirator, and potential child murderer within the same hour. Every later version of Jaime grows from that collision. The novel asks how completely perspective can imprison a person. Jaime lives for 2 books as a collection of other people's memories: Ned's Oathbreaker, Catelyn's enemy, Bran's attacker, Robb's captive, Tyrion's beloved brother, and Cersei's absent twin. When Martin finally gives him the word I, the reader discovers how many facts fit inside a man without producing a clean verdict. The show asks what an actor can reveal before a character is willing to confess. Coster Waldau lets amusement cover fear, lets pride cover shame, and lets brief moments of kindness survive beside terrible decisions. The writing gives him private scenes early, and the performance makes those scenes feel like clues the audience may understand only years later. I think the book delivers the stronger trap. Jon's admiration, Bran's nightly dream, and the long absence of Jaime's inner voice allow Martin to build a public monster, hand that monster the narration, and force the reader to reconsider the pleasure of easy judgment. The delayed point of view is one of the boldest structural choices in the series. The show delivers the stronger immediate character entrance. Jaime standing beside Jon Arryn's body tells us almost everything in coded form. He lives close to death. He shares a dangerous secret with Cersei. Tywin's rules speak through him. Humor is how he handles fear. Love gives him purpose and permission. He believes the crisis has passed because the man who knew too much can no longer speak. By the end of the episode, another witness appears. Bran sees Jaime and Cersei together. Jaime catches him. For a second, he holds the boy safely. The beautiful knight and the dangerous man occupy the same frame. He looks at Cersei, says the line, and pushes. The book turns the knight from the songs into a nightmare. The show reveals that the nightmare can smile, love his brother, calm his sister, understand honor, and still use both hands to throw a child from a tower. Years later, Jaime loses one of those hands and begins asking what remains. Every answer goes back to the introduction. A golden appearance gave him a role. A white cloak gave him an oath. Cersei gave him an identity. The Kingslayer name gave everyone else a verdict. Once those things begin falling away, Jaime has to discover whether there was ever a self underneath them. That question gives the character his power in both versions. The route changes. The book hides the man until we are certain we know him. The show lets us meet the man early and waits for us to understand what we saw.